politics belong in gaming? Do you want to hear about activism in gaming? Would you like to hear about politics in gaming? Well, sucks to be you, because politics are in everything. So many games you've played have political elements woven into them. A lot of people, myself included, have expressed a sentiment that they don't want to see politics in their games. Understandably, many others have responded with, politics are everywhere, and all art is political.
I don't like real-life problems in politics in my games and shows. Guys, all art is a reflection of the human experience in one way or another. Human issues inspire some of the best art, especially video games. Star Wars, Mass Effect, Final Fantasy, Persona, Halo, God of War, The Last of Us all tackle inherently political issues or deeply human problems. If this is such an issue for you, you might as well just not play anything.
So it made me wonder, are we being unreasonable? What do people really mean when they say they don't want politics in their video games or in their movies? This isn't the first time this discussion has come up, but the recent instance was sparked by the Helldivers 2 creative director when he made this tweet. He starts off by saying, with 10 minutes to 2025, what are your expectations and desires for the next Arrowhead game will be? Or for what the next Arrowhead game will be. He continued by saying, I'm working on the high concept, but I'd love to hear your speculation. He has good vibes. And someone said immediately, never add DEI to your games. To which he replied, if it doesn't add to the game experience, it detracts. And games should be a pure pursuit of amazing moments. A poster named Drew then replied to Pilestead saying, how would DEI have benefited Helldivers 2? To which Pilestead replied, I don't like labels, but mankind is united in its extreme xenophobia on Super Earth. Hashtag inclusion. So maybe that's DEI? I really don't care. Make good games, don't make a contemporary political statement. And oh boy, this really got certain people going. But what he said here is understandable, and you can tell this guy doesn't want to divide people, he just wants there to be good games. He didn't make that tweet to get people fighting. He literally asked them about something completely unrelated to this. I think he was smart to stay neutral because that's exactly what you want to do when it comes to your audience and the consumers buying your product. But then you have the flaming, aggravated people coming through, like this poster who said, this is such a weird statement, and of course Grums is using this as a win for his side when he led a harassment campaign against your community managers last year, to which people are claiming that this person is a lot like Grums, who initially, when he started out, was just trying to defend the integrity of gaming. At least that's how it begun. And you can see that people are tired of us. Wow, I just now got this comment. Repent for lying, Jesus loves you. At first, I was like, why is this person putting this stupid Christianity thing in here? It has nothing to do with the conversation, and I see who it is, and I'm like, oh. I get it. But yeah, you do have people piling on Pilestead and attacking his statement while he's trying to be as professional as possible, it seems. Someone says, God, you're so fucking spineless. Interesting. So moving on, people like this claim that it's weird that he'll say that DEI detracts from and doesn't add to the game experience and say that anti-DEI is bigotry. And they continued by saying you made a contemporary political statement when you made Helldivers 2. You can make good games and contemporary political statements. All art is political. What's with all the different flags that people have by their... It's very distracting. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. It's like a calling card or something? I don't know. There's like so many of them. But anyway, see, there's another one. What is that? LGBT and something else. But anyway, the person above said, good media often makes contemporary political statements. 2 examples. Politics are inextricably, can't speak today. Politics are inextricably woven into the fabric of Star Trek. Why can't I speak? Do it. Let's try it again with my mouth not freaking flying off my face. Good media often makes contemporary it's the freaking colors of the freaking whatever. It's thinking out my mind, man. Let's hide it. Okay, there we go. Concentrate. I get distracted easily. I'm sorry. Good media often makes contemporary political statements. 2 examples. Politics are inextricably woven into the fabric of Starship Troopers and your own game, Johan. So anyway, aside from that, it didn't take long before this whole thing devolved into insults and people hurling their proverbial shit at each other. Well, like the creative director said, discussions and discourse are actually good for society, particularly when they're productive. So I decided to take a deeper look into politics in gaming, rather the subject matter, and why people are so anti-politics in gaming now, especially when they weren't before, and what exactly makes the right way to incorporate politics versus the wrong way. So the first thing I want to say is Politics have always had a place in video games and entertainment. It's nothing new, but there is a key difference between incorporating broader political themes and then shoehorning in the modern day politics that we see everywhere now. It's not that politics themselves are bad, because a lot of the time they often add depth and they create these really good stories or narratives, and of course they spark conversation. Games like BioShock, Fallout, or even Metal Gear Solid are great examples of this. They use political themes to build rich worlds and explore complex ideas without dragging the players out of the experience of the game. But when people bring up the issue about politics, they're usually referring to present-day politics, which are often divisive, raw, and emotionally charged.
You've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
And why is this? Because it's too close to home, and anything too close to home ruins the immersion into escapism. If you just lost a loved one, or you just had a very bad breakup, and you lost the love of your life, would you want to watch romance movies or hear songs about people falling in love or see people kissing and hugging? While some people might want to do that, I think I speak for a lot of us that want to be as far away from that as possible. The last thing we want to think about is what we lost or don't have, because the pain is still very raw.
It's fucking raw!
So then what do we do? Well, if you're like me, and I think a lot of people are, you bury yourself into your work, your art, you work out even harder, and try to keep yourself busy, anything to escape the feelings or reasons for why you're experiencing those feelings. People also turn to gaming and entertainment as a form of escapism, a way to step away from the stress and noise of real life, even if they haven't lost anyone. When modern politics are inserted too blatantly into those little mediums, it can break that immersion, and it makes it feel like the game or whatever entertainment that they're watching or consuming is preaching to them or taking sides, which alienates part of the audience. It stops being about the story or the world, and it starts feeling like an argument that you didn't ask to be a part of, something that you're trying to escape from or get away from, only to see it in your face again. Now, it's not to say that games shouldn't touch on sensitive topics or challenge players' perspectives, but there is a big difference between weaving in timeless themes like fighting for freedom, or the dangers of corruption, or exploring morality, and directly referencing today's heated issues that you're often knee-deep in and seeing everywhere you look in present day. When the latter happens, it can hurt the experience, because instead of immersing yourself into this all other world, it's just beautiful and scintillating, you're just being pulled back into the chaos that you were trying to escape from in the first place. And that's what people mean when they say they don't want politics in their gaming. They mean modern day politics.
For me, that always matters more than any negative feedback, because I'm just like, normally the people you're negative about, it's not for them. And I won't really stand for it, to be honest. I'm from the East End. Like, if y'all want to hit me up on social media and do some of that nonsense, like, go ahead and try. I'm not the one.
We're the AM, we're the refugees. Welcome on you, we're right behind you.
The big thing about this game that is, I don't want to say grating, but it's wearing on me. And the big thing about this game that's wearing on me a little bit is the quality of the writing.
We saw this issue with Dragon Age the Veilguard. You can check out, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Check out his video. People hear these issues, preach them constantly no matter where they go. So when they turn to entertainment as an escape, they don't want those same present day problems thrown in their face in a game they're paying for. Even if a game presents issues that parallel the current real world problems, as long as it doesn't actively and obviously reference modern day events, it's easier for players to feel removed from it. They can immerse themselves in someone else's lives or struggles of their character rather than being bombarded and reminded of their own in the real world. Now, remember the commenter who pointed out that Starship Troopers and Helldivers 2 were laden with politics? Technically, they're correct, but they're missing a key distinction. The politics in Starship Troopers, or even in older shows like Star Trek and Helldivers 2, are abstract, satirical, and or often woven into the fictional world in a way that directly serves the story or enhances the themes or the general themes of that story. These types of games and media don't preach or push players to take a specific stance on a real world at the moment issue. Instead, what they do is they use exaggerated scenarios like the militaristic governments, the societal conformity, or the ethics of war to provoke thought and enrich the story or the narrative of the game or movie or show or what have you. What many players did take issue with in modern day games isn't the presence of politics per se, but the way that contemporary real-world political issues are sometimes, or oftentimes, as you can see from the modern games, presented to them. So when these issues are inserted way too bluntly, or they come across as them overtly being preached to, it feels very jarring, it feels very ham-fisted, very heavy-handed, and just really out of place. Instead of it feeling like this broader immersive world, they come across as direct commentary on the present-day debates, one that players and audiences are seeking an escape from. An example of this was the Doctor Who episode where they brought back David Tennant to give him this scene.
We've still got to fix you two, because the metacrisis might have slowed down, but that thing is wrapped around your cortex.
Yes, we know. We know everything. Thanks. And you know nothing. It's a shame you're not one anymore. Because you've understood. You've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand. Just let it go. And we choose to let it go.
Fuck off. Fuck off.
Does that scene not make you want to roll your eyes so freaking fast that they start to generate their own gravitational field? I mean, it's especially nonsensical and condescending to the audience and to the franchise they love when you consider that they already had a scene prior, like much earlier, with the same Time Lord saying this.
Now stop. Just let go.
So I am confusion.
As for the examples that were provided, they are a contrast. The politics in Starship Troopers and Helldivers 2 are fictionalized and allegorical, and it also allows the players or the audience to engage with them without feeling like they're being lectured to or drawn into this divisive real-world argument. The way to do politics is to leave room for interpretation, encouraging players or your audience to reflect without forcing them to confront modern-day disputes head-on, nose all the way up the cheeks. And it boils down to how something's presented. That's really what it comes down to, and the subtlety of it. Fictionalized, fantastical, political commentary enhances immersion, but when you're being like ham with it, like overtly in your face with it, with the real world political preaching, that can break the immersion. That's why players appreciate the former while rejecting the latter. It's also why people accepted Avatar, the Na'vi movie, because despite its obvious political allegory, it comes down to how the message was delivered. Aside from Jake Sully going balls deep in some alien pasquini, the movie touched on heavy themes like environmentalism, colonialism, and corporate greed, but it wrapped those ideas in this beautifully immersive alien world that felt like pure escapism. The political allegory, at least to me and most people, wasn't shoved in your face with modern day names and buzzwords and slogans or this preachy, weird, cringy dialogue. Instead, it was woven into a story about a distant planet, a unique culture, and a breathtaking visual experience. People could connect with the themes on a deeper, more emotional level without feeling like they're being dragged into a current IRL debate. Also, the Na'vi weren't standing in for any one specific group from our world. They're actually a blend of many indigenous cultures, which made their struggles feel universal rather than it's tied to a single real-world issue. It allowed viewers to empathize with their plight while still feeling removed enough to enjoy what they were seeing on screen. And that's why Avatar works so well. It really made you care about its message without making you feel like you're being lectured to. It didn't disrupt your escapism, it enhanced the escapism. That's the balance a lot of people wish more modern games and movies could strike, and that's the kind of politics that people actually love. And what I would say, honestly, is if people don't readily recognize the presence of politics in a video game or movie, then that means the creators have done a good job. There's a reason why people used to say art is open to interpretation. When I write my stories, whether it's on my other story channel or the one that most people don't know about, the characters I create are usually very far removed from any audience that might come across them. They're either told from the point of view of animals or creatures or human beings in completely different situations. And if I'm telling a story from a human perspective, I make sure that there are characters with a very large variety of differing views, even from the animals, because they are anthropomorphized in their personalities. The characters in my stories typically come from different walks of life, and it's never about having one person who fits into a specific demographic being targeted or portrayed as foolish. They're individuals first, and that's something that matters to me. Each of them has a clear, well thought out motivation for their actions and beliefs, and these motivations drive why they make their decisions, and when the other characters challenge them, they push back. But despite all these differences, many of them remain friends, or even if they're enemies, there's rarely this clear-cut, one-dimensional reason for their conflict. Even in a group of friends with varying ideologies, if they face a common enemy, they'll set their differences aside and work together, even if they were arguing earlier over something that they disagreed on. And most, or more importantly, if I'm going to touch on real-world issues, I approach it satirically. I don't just target one specific group of person or group for ridicule. For example, in one scene of one of my stories or my fanfiction stories, two kaiju are talking to each other. They're old friends. They don't agree on everything. They're always teasing each other, but they poke fun at the stereotypical behaviors of humanity, and that's because they see them from their kaiju perspective. To them, humans are weird in general. They don't single out one particular group because realistically, that's not how they see things, and I wouldn't write it that way just to avoid offending real-world people either. Some people argue like it's just a fantasy, but the key to crafting a really good and very entertaining story is to immerse people so deep inside of it that they forget that it's fantasy. You have to trick their brains into thinking that it's real by making it feel as grounded and authentic as possible while still offering an escape from the real world. Trick them to thinking that it's real by making them forget that it's fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, I know that doesn't make sense to some people, but it's a technique in entertainment, whether video games, movies, or shows, that's been used for a very long time. Like, it's only recently as people have become more sensitive and offended by everything that the art of subtlety has just been lost. It's like they've completely forgotten that this was how things were being done all this time. Now everything seems to be really heavy-handed, and rather than being nuanced and open to interpretation, you know, the storytelling that once made these mediums so powerful, now it has to be laden with real-world at-the-moment activism. So what say you guys? Do you like the way the characters in movies and games are being written now? Do you think that politics doesn't belong in gaming at all, or do you just think it's the way it's being presented at the moment? Where do you think it all went wrong? And what do you think needs to change, if anything?
The phrase "keep politics out of gaming" is one that's been thrown around the last decade, and just thinking about that statement confuses me. It's often argued that all art is political to some degree, and while I hard disagree with that, even games like Sonic have a lot of environmentalist themes to it, which is still considered political for some reason. People will often look past overtly political messages in games, either because they don't want something disagreeing with them, agree with the message already, or because the worm in their brain just decided to take the day off.